The Diggers were super radical beyond anything I can even explain to you how radical they were. Could be that this image is enough. But what I love about them was, for as radical as they were, and so as insistent as they were on denouncing everything about the 50s and 60s that had happened, which is typified in Mad Men if you watch TV. They said, we're going to create a new economic system, and we're going to call it Free City, and then we're going to act on it. So there they are, redistributing food that's free. They went and found surplus food and brought it to a place and told everyone that it was going to be there and distributed it for free. And so you saw the crazy picture of them naked, and then you see this crazy, equally crazy picture of them giving away free food. They didn't do it for charity. It wasn't Habitat for Humanity. It wasn't let's solve the homeless problem. It had no nonprofit underpinnings. It wasn't about that at all. It was about saying, you're working for the man if you're buying things and selling things. And if you want to disconnect from the man, then everything should be free. And he said that at a time when it was incredibly important to disconnect from the man. And what I'm saying now is, for as inspiring as they are, they failed spectacularly. And there's a guy who was in the Diggers, his name is Pt.2. He's now an actor in Los Angeles. They made a movie called Commune. It was a documentary. It's an obscure documentary called Commune, but in some of the side, they make videos. They interviewed him, and they asked him what he would do differently. And he said, I'd take less drugs, number one, and secondly, he said, which is funny, and then secondly, he said, I would never have created a counterculture. I would have stayed in culture and worked from the inside. Because actually we could have achieved what we wanted to achieve if we would have done that. We should have stayed in Detroit where we lived and built a functioning free model without being naked, without taking drugs and being in San Francisco and Haight-Ashbury in 1969. That's their free store. They had a store. Everything inside was free. So I have basically built a very kind of substantial, at least in my own mind, substantial idea around Pt.2's idea that you stay in culture instead of creating a counterculture. So I'm working truthfully from the inside, and to work from the inside today means to engage, among many other things, it means to engage technology, use technology. The idea of the free store lives, which is great. This is an example of the free store in Bolinas, which is a small town above San Francisco, which has a lot of hippie origins and is still very much alive as a hippie kind of enclave. And I was just there a couple weekends ago, and it's genius. It's just utopian and beautiful and phenomenal. And in their town square, they have a free box, which is the picture here, that people use and love, and it's part of a larger resource sharing infrastructure that's actually in place in Bolinas. Whole Foods, for instance, gives away all the surplus food that they haven't sold that week to people in Bolinas, and they share it. They're all very wealthy too, so it's not like charity. It's just surplus, and it gets shared in Bolinas. I want to talk quickly about what's in the gallery right now, called Commune. We renamed it, the project, this afternoon. Yes, we changed the pronunciation. My company's called We Commune, and it's about communing, it's not about communes. And I'll touch on that in a second. The idea of communing is a verb, people coming together and sharing and doing many other things. You don't necessarily have to live in a commune to do that. So that's why we call it a commune. It's about communing. The sharing resources kiosk that's in the gallery now is part of an infrastructure, it's an urban infrastructure that I think can be deployed in any public space and organize resource sharing. So just like you see a kiosk to sell a product, or you see a fruit stand, or you see whatever you see, You would encounter this in any urban condition, and it's just a place to organize sharing. So, say you want to find a ride, and you want to carpool with someone, you could stand here and get a ride, or so on, and so on. It's a kind of idea. It's an idea also about understanding that when you create infrastructure, resource sharing infrastructure online, there's also ways to create nodal, networked, distributed infrastructure in cities that is offline, and that there's a possibility that those two things can talk to each other. So that's the premise of this project. It also is an image project, meaning when people see this, they're reminded that it's possible to have resource sharing in their lives, a place of freedom in their lives, infrastructure for freedom that is there to organize the resource sharing infrastructure, right? We don't see it, so we don't do it. It's not that complicated. It just is infrastructure. This was also originally a competition, and so I'm just showing kind of how it worked as a competition kind of idea. Back to the free store. I'm installing free stores in downtown Joshua Tree now. We're going to build a little 80 square foot box and test the concept. That's not the final graphic treatment, by the way. I'd like to put a free store in the lobby of every hotel. I want to put a free store at every music festival. We're actually pitching Coachella and South by Southwest both to do this, so it's kind of, this is real actually. And I want to insert this idea that any time someone walks into that store, everything in that store will be free. And that that's possible, and that actually I will create an economic underpinning for it that will make it possible for real. Not as an art and a cultural and an architecture and an idea project, but as a real project. And that's kind of hard, I'm going to just tell you right now. It's not hard to make things, I mean, it is hard to make things free, all right? So it's like a big, complicated task. So it's like 10 after 6, and so I'm going to leave you with We Commune. And the irony of leaving you with We Commune in a 3-minute summing up of the work I've been working on is that We Commune is a huge, complicated, 18-hour-a-day, many people involved kind of project at this point. And as I said, in its simple idea, it's an online technology for resource sharing. So any of you in this room, if you felt like it, Astrid would want me to say, go start a commune and promote my company, but you don't have to start a commune if you don't want to, but you could start a commune. If you go online to wecommune.com, in about 5 minutes you can start a commune, and you can invite some people to join your commune, and together you can share resources in a pretty simple way. You can do that geographically, or you can do it virtually, and so if you live among people who you want to start a commune with, like if you live in a cul-de-sac or a dorm or an apartment building, feel free to start a commune there. Or you can start a virtual commune if you're in a rock band. Your rock band could become a commune, your church group. I don't really care, it doesn't matter. It's a typology, not an ideology. The interface is a bulletin board. There are 2 interfaces. The first one here I'm showing you is a bulletin board interface. So you're keeping track of your commune as it goes about its business. The second interface is a control panel interface right here, which organizes your sharing. In this case, this is the barter and group barter sharing interface. Our next steps with We Commune is to go away from our platform and onto other group platforms. For instance, probably many of you are in a Facebook group, and your Facebook group could become a resource sharing group and share resources powered by We Commune. So we're building technology that can go off our site and onto other sites. This is a funded technology company, and I'm a high-tech startup, and I deal, CEO, and I deal all the time with venture capitalists and people who work for me and who design things like this. I designed this. It's just like designing a building, I would say. So feel free to go online, and if you have any questions about it, email me at stephanie@wecommune.com.